The battle's getting heated. Before we rush in, let's check out those game faces. Jean, let's see it. Good. Connie, what you got? Nice. How about you, Mikasa? Give it all you've got. Perfect. All right, Yelena, you're up. You might want to work on that. So Attack on Titan just keeps barreling forward with a full head of steam. They won't give us a chance to catch our breath because it's just boom, boom. This whole second part has gotten off to such a hot start, and just when it looks like somebody's defeated, they kind of pull off something like a sneak attack, which of course is the name of this episode. But it does start off with Armin continuing to explain his theories about Eren to his colleagues, most specifically to Mikasa. And he did this a little bit last episode, but they kind of expand on it here. And one thing that I start to think here, like he tells Mikasa that he and Eren knew about her headaches for years, and that of course Eren would say these things to try to manipulate her. But then I start to wonder if there's a chance, because we know that Armin is the clever guy who can definitely think a few steps down the road. I wonder if he's telling Mikasa what he thinks she needs to hear more than what he necessarily believes to be true. Now, I'm kind of with Armin on what he's saying here. Like, I agree 100%. My theory lines up with Armin's theory. But Armin is the kind of guy that could think far enough the road and be clever enough that he might actually be manipulating Mikasa in this moment when he's trying to convince her that Eren is the one manipulating her, because he needs her to be on her A game for whatever lies ahead with this ridiculous battle against Marley and Shiganshina. So I do like the way that it has me sort of wondering if there's like a triple manipulation maneuver going on here. I mean, I already have to question everything that Eren says, and now I kind of have to question Armin's responses to Eren, and that just makes the show really fun to me. One person pointed out in the comments to the reaction to this episode, at this point, we're just sitting back and watching. We just have to take our hats off, sit down, and see what happens, because there's no right or wrong person to root for at this point. We've gone way beyond the point where we have heroes and villains. We just have battles to watch and try to make of it what we will. And just as the commenter had said, it's a top-notch compliment to the quality of Isayama's writing here. But I do like how each member of the team kind of has their own reason to help Armin. I mean, more specifically, we see Jean. And Jean talks about how he does think Armin is cool and that makes him envy him, but he still wants to help him because he thinks that's the best way to defeat Marley, I guess. And Armin has his reasons for wanting to help Eren because he believes that Eren has some other trick up his sleeve and he's not just going along with the euthanization plan, which is squarely where I lie. But I think my favorite was Connie, and Connie wants to save Eren just so Connie can be the one to slug him in the mouth after it's all said and done. So I think that's a lot of fun too. Kind of reminds me of the movie Hot Rod, where the guy wants to win money to pay for his stepfather's cancer treatment, so when his stepfather's cancer gets cured, he can beat him up. And I kind of like Connie's reasoning there. I want to save Eren so I can be the one to like slug him in the face and maybe knock out a tooth or give him a bloody nose. I like that. But everybody has their own separate motivation, or at least what they lie out for the public consumption to be their own motivation for wanting to help Eren. But I think at the end, they're just, like helping Eren is kind of ingrained in them. They came up through cadets together. They've been bailing him out of hot water so much that now it's like second nature. I don't think they know what else to do in this situation other than help Eren. But it's fun hearing everybody give their own justification for why they're going to proceed here. And we have a nice little bit of a reveal. After the last episode, I wondered who's going to be the first one to show up and bail out Eren. Is it going to be Armin and Mikasa, or is it going to be Zeke and Flock? Well, that question gets answered here pretty early on when Zeke shows up and keeps his appointment. He does apologize for being a little bit late, but Zeke does keep his promise to meet Eren in Shiganshina, and he's up there on the wall, and of course he uses his Randy Johnson power of throwing boulders and throwing crushed up boulders to really help turn the tide of the battle. Because as bad as everything seemed to be going for Paradis and as dominant as Marley seemed to be, well, there's a clear shift in momentum once Zeke shows up. Not the least of which is the way he's able to sort of crush those boulders into grape shot and just take down those dirigibles, throw up just like gigantic shotgun blasts at those blimps that are armed with machine guns. And he brings the blimps down, and that goes a long way towards opening up the battlefield. And of course, once he shows up, two things pop into everybody's mind. Number one, is Zeke going to use the scream and turn all of these folks who've drank that wine that was tainted with spinal fluid into Titans? And how long is it going to take Aaron to come into contact with Zeke and unlock that founding Titan power? One thing I've learned from Attack on Titan is everything takes a few episodes longer than you think it should, and that's not anything I'm complaining about because I always end up enjoying the surprises and the obstacles that pop up. But when Zeke shows up, I knew darn well we're not going to see Aaron make contact with Zeke by the end of this episode, but I thought maybe he could use his scream. Of course, that doesn't happen yet. Also, Zeke has a statement that I kind of wonder how it's going to sit with Aaron, but he says, you can sit back and let your big brother take over. Now, they didn't really have much of a brother relationship. He didn't even know Zeke until, the end of season 2, I suppose. Or I guess it's season 3, right? So not much of a brotherly relationship there, but even if he had, I don't think the younger brother likes the big brother riding into town and claiming he's going to fix the problem. So I thought that line was interesting, particularly given the fact that the title of the next episode is Two Brothers. So I'm curious how this brotherly dynamic is going to play out here, specifically since I fully don't expect Aaron to go along with Zeke's plan when that time comes to it. I don't think Aaron has much genuine affection for Zeke. But Falco, Falco is with Niles, the military police officer that actually helped Erwin out, the one who kind of changed his loyalties when the time called for him to do what was right. Well, we see Niles do something pretty amazing again in this episode because he turns Falco over voluntarily to his brother Colt, who's with Gabi. And a couple of big things happen here. I mean, first off, it reinforces what we know about Niles, and it reinforces that he's one of the rare good members of the military police. And it impresses upon Gabi a little bit how these, quote, devils have quite a bit of humanity. Maybe just as much as the Marleyans, if not more. And I don't want to say more, but I'll say just as much because we've also seen surprising humanity from Magath, who is one of the Marleyans. But I think Niles turning Falco over, it shows, first off, there's a whole lot bigger problem to deal with than what to do with Falco. Also, Niles understands Falco should be with his brother, Falco should be with his friend, Gabi. And once again, like I said, the title of the next episode is Two Brothers, so we've got two pairs of brothers that we're seeing be reunited here. Zeke and Aaron, of course, but then also Colt and Falco. So maybe there's some potential for something interesting to go there. But I do like the voluntary transfer of Falco from Niles' custody over to the custody of an invading Marleyan, his brother Colt, who has Gabi alongside him. And of course, with the prisoners who have drank of the spinal fluid being released, well, Pixis is able to step up and fill in the leadership void. And I like Pixis a lot. Also, Pixis is like the last leader left standing, particularly with Hanji's whereabouts being unknown. But seeing Pixis step up and address everybody and sort of organizing what I'll call a resistance or a defense to this Marleyan invasion, it was kind of nice seeing Pixis back and seeing Pixis back at it. And he is the kind of person who could reunite the Jaegerists with the anti-Jaegerists to fight against Marley. The Eldians united against Marley, other than the Marleyan Eldians. But I do like seeing Pixis back. It's also interesting that he acknowledged his drinking problem here, because I've talked about the fact that I look at him as the embodiment of alcoholism sometimes, and it is drinking that probably cursed him the most, because he's probably drank more of that spinal fluid than anybody else. So if Zeke lets out his scream with as much wine as I suspect Pixis has drank, he could turn into like another Rod Rice-sized super colossal monumental titan kind of thing. So I think that's real interesting, a nice ironic punishment. You know, the punishment fits the crime for Pixis there. But I do love seeing him back in action, back at the front, his own acknowledgement of his problems. I wonder if that's going to lead to sort of a recovery for him, if he's going to lay off the booze after what happened with that Marleyan wine. And I don't know if I'm in favor of that because he needs some kind of flaw or else he's just too perfect. But I guess you could say it's a pretty big flaw when you're one scream away from becoming a Titan, right? I'm also very happy to see Shadis is still alive, because the way that confrontation went down at the end of the first part of Season 4, when Flock showed up and ordered the cadets who wanted to be Jaegerists to just give a beating to Shadis, I really thought they had beaten him to death. I thought Shadis had spent his last day on this Attack on Titan world. I thought he was gone. When I see him in the cell, he looks a little worse for wear. He's definitely been roughed up, but I was so happy to see he's still alive and he still has that chance to move beyond being a bystander and to be an active part of the story. And I think he will. I think he will. I know he's the sort of person who doesn't think he deserves happiness, but I feel like he is going to have a key important role to play, most likely in this battle in Shiganshina, but maybe it'll be even beyond this, if there is a beyond this in the show. But, you know, sort of classic Titan battle fashion that I've picked up now watching not quite 4 seasons, 3.5 seasons of Attack on Titan. Eren is able to dig deep, grab his reserves. When he looks defeated, he puts up another flurry of fight. He manages to draw some kind of strength from way down low, most specifically from his stubbornness and his refusal to quit. Like the guy has no idea when to quit, except for when he just wants to sit back and die. I mean, there have been a couple times when he puts up no fight at all. But once he starts fighting, there's no stopping him until the fight is finished. And so far, he's managed to emerge from them all still alive. I won't say victorious, but still alive. And he digs deep. He puts that armored fist right up in Reiner's mouth, and it looks like he just rips his top jaw open. I mean, he gets him really good. He manages to get another burst of that Warhammer Titan power and throw spikes up. And I know that Magath had said that the energy that it takes to create those constructs that the Warhammer Titan power allows him to create really drains the energy, but it seems like he's still digging deep. But at the end of it, once he frees himself from Reiner, I mean, he slaps the stink off of Porco as the Jaw Titan. He knocks him all over to the poor side of town, over by the wall with one good swat. But then we see he's limping along. He's limping along like a guy who sat with his legs crossed a little bit too long and one foot fell asleep, so he's having trouble walking. But he's limping forward to Zeke because he wants to get there. He wants to activate that founding Titan power, and he wants to change the world as we know it. He wants to change the face of this conflict in a way that I still can't confidently guess at or even attempt to speculate, other than I know it's not going to be the euthanization plan, right? I mean, hopefully you agree with me on that one. But this is the episode where Gabi finally had a bit of a breakthrough, right? Like, I've been waiting for the redemption, and, you know, I maybe made too much of it in the reaction because it's not the full redemption, but boy, I see her taking the first step down that path to redemption because she has a major breakthrough talking to Falco. When Falco gets turned over, they're in this room, and she says, you know what? I didn't meet any devils in Eldia, or in Paradis rather. There were no devils, there were only people. And she hears Sasha's family walking by. When she hears Kaya, you know, the other family members say they're just worried about her and Falco. They hope they're okay. Of course, Kaya wishes that she was dead because she tried to ice pick her in the eyeball, so you don't get over something like that very quickly. But we do see finally that's the breakdown inside with Gabi, and she starts to see the world differently. And I think this is her first step, her first paving stone to step on down that path of redemption. It's also incredibly interesting that this scene takes place in a room filled with empty bird cages. And the bird cage analogy has just been used with increasing intensity between season 1 and here, to the point you could almost say it's getting a little heavy-handed. And I've never been in a room filled with empty bird cages. I guess at a pet shop they would probably have that, so I don't know why there's a bird cage room in this castle in Shiganshina, but she's in the only room I've ever seen completely filled with empty bird cages. And as she sort of has her breakthrough, and as she sort of starts to open her eyes to the reality of the situation and break out of her sort of jingoistic approach or her very narrow-minded approach to the relationship between Eldians and the rest of the world. They also choose to focus on a birdcage whose door is open. And you go back and you look at that scene, and they really do close in on this birdcage on its side with the door open, as if, you know, we see the idea of the Eldians being held behind walls, whether it's in Paradis behind those walls or in Liberio behind those walls. And those are a very clear analogy for a physical cage that birds are being held in, taking away their freedom. But this sort of implies that Gabi has been held inside of a cage of her own construction, sort of a mental and emotional cage. And as she has that breakthrough and you see that door open, that's letting us know that the possibility of Gabi stepping out of that cage is before her, but as she's so trained to live in the cage, it's difficult for her to do without a little nudge. But we do see her ripping the black armband off of Falco, which is also, I think, a big step for Gabi. It's not quite the same as the Eldian armband that they had to wear in Marley and in Liberio, but she was really attached to her armband. She got very angry when Falco tried to take her armband from Liberio off of her arm here in Paradis. So to see her to be the one to rip that armband off of Falco, and she doesn't want the fact that he's drank that spinal fluid to be his defining characteristics. She wants to see beyond that and see him as a person, not a devil. That's a great moment. Once again, just a visualization, a visual representation of what's happening internally and cognitively and emotionally with Gabi there. And of course, that gets coupled with Falco's admission of love. And I thought, wow, he's gotten awfully bold and brave here to just come out and say this. But, you know, Zeke's outside. Zeke's just one shout away from turning Falco into a regular old dumb, mindless Titan. So if he doesn't say it now, he'll never get the chance to say it. Now, I think he is a little bit on the young side to be talking about marrying somebody and having a long, happy life, but there's no love like young love, right? We're all kind of young and foolish once, and some of us end up being old and foolish if we're lucky. But he let it all out there. He put it on the line. Helps explain to us why he was so protective of her and why it was so important that she not become an armored titan. But I would also like to know a little bit more. Maybe we'll find out a little bit more about what makes Gabi special to Falco, and that it's not just because he sees this beautiful, strong girl, but maybe there's something a little bit more to it also, because she was pretty bad for a while. And I think it would be pretty easy to lose interest if your interest was purely superficial. So I want to see some reinforcement of those feelings that Falco has. And we know that Gabi is going to use that anti-Titan rifle, the big, long, looks like a sniper rifle to me, but I'm no gun expert. But Colt had it. Colt brought it with him, I guess, when he jumped out of the blimp and came down. And we know from the trailer that Gabi has this big, long, high-caliber sniper rifle that we hear described as an anti-Titan gun by Colt. So we know she's going to use it. But the question now, having seen her have this bit of a breakthrough, is who is she going to aim it at? Is she going to aim it at Eren? You know, when I saw the trailer, I just assumed she had that gun to shoot at Eren. But now with her seeing the world kind of through a different lens and from a different point of view, is she going to be aiming at Pieck? Or is she going to be aiming at Porco? Or maybe Zeke? Or maybe Reiner? And you know what? If I got to pick, like if Gabi said, hey, who do you want me to shoot with this rifle? I'm going to say Porco. I don't like that guy. Shoot the Jaw Titan, Gabi. But I guess now is as good a time as any to ask, what the heck was going on with Yelena's face when she looked down at Armin? I mean, she makes the most bizarre, scary, memeable, weird facial expression to Armin in that moment where he tells her he's going to help fight against the people and save Eren. But then you have this quick, like, transition in her facial expression to a kind, I won't say kind, but a more neutral expression, and not that hideous, like, large Marge sent you kind of face she was making. And I really think that's another visual cue to let us know that we can't trust Yelena. We can't trust what she's telling us. We can't trust what it looks like she wants to do. She has her own motive buried beneath her. I don't know just how much it's pure loyalty to Zeke, but that face that's like purely hideous and monstrous, and then just quickly in the blink of an eye it changes to a normal human face. To me, that's a visual cue that what we're seeing on the surface from Yelena is covering up some kind of absolute disgust with what she's seeing, not just from Armin, but maybe from all the Eldians. We'll just have to see what her ultimate game plan is too, right? And the Marleyans, particularly the warrior program folks, the folks who are Eldians fighting for Marley, well, they've never met a war crime they didn't like, correct? Because Pete commits another war crime. We saw Gabi back in the first episode of Season 4 do the false surrender and use a weapon to take out the enemy. Well, now we see faking an injury from Peak. She abandons the Cart Titan form, lures people in, fakes being wounded, which I'm pretty sure, once again, I'm not a military attorney for international war crimes, but I'm pretty sure faking being wounded to draw people in for help and then shooting at them, that's a war crime. If not on paper, it at least should be in spirit. But she lures in some scouts. They get shot with rifles at close range, and then Magath pulls off the money shot, what they're really going for. He gets that huge cannon, the one that was designed to fight against Eren. He gets it trained in on Zeke, and he really does a number on Zeke. I mean, blows a hole right where his neck and shoulder meet together. It looks like it's just off center from the nape, so Zeke still has a little bit of life in him, but we see this slow, epic just collapse of the Beast Titan from the top of that wall in Shiganshina all the way down to the ground, and he hits, makes a little bit of a rumble, and the question starts to get asked by me, and I'm sure by you and by people watching the show everywhere, exactly how much participation is required by Zeke for the Founding Titan power to be unlocked. Like, if Zeke is unconscious and Eren touches him, is that enough? Like, as long as Zeke is still alive, his heart is still beating, is that all it takes? Or does it take some kind of like awareness or alertness? Like, if Zeke is unconscious and asleep, well, I don't know if the power is going to work that way, because the only time we saw it work, well, Eren touched Dinah Fritz in her Titan form, which was her only form at that point, and she was active. She was fighting. It was a battle, so she was awake and alert and sort of engaging in the world around her. So if Zeke is just lying there and totally out of it, I don't know if Eren simply touching him is going to do the trick or not. Or maybe it will. But it gives me another question to ponder here, and to wonder if simply Eren managing to make it to Zeke before Zeke is killed or Eren is stopped, if that's going to accomplish anything, I don't know. So it's another question out there, because many times I've seen when I thought something was going to happen and it didn't. Also, another big fear is from the Marleyans, Magath in particular, is Zeke still aware and alert and conscious enough to scream? Because I think he is. I think we're going to see the scream in one of the next 2 episodes. And it's going to be heartbreaking to me when we see that horrific scream, and we see Pixis become a Titan, and we see all these. Really, it'll mainly just be Pixis. I don't know how much I care about the rest of the folks. A lot of them are characters who might be named, but I don't have a huge relationship with them. But Pixis and, of course, Falco, seeing those 2 become Titans is going to be heart-wrenching, and I think it's going to happen soon. I think that's going to be the next big turn in this battle in Shiganshina, because you got 300 Titans pop up in the center of town. Well, the Marleyans are just going to have to get out of there. And the only way to save anybody is going to be for Eren or Zeke to take control of those Titans around him. So Zeke can just do it if he's aware enough to do so. Eren can unlock the Founding Titan power and take control of them if he needs to. But I think that's the next big turn in the battle. The next major turn in the battle is when the scream gets unleashed. I think it's going to happen within the next couple episodes. Maybe at the very end of the next episode, making us wait a whole week to see what happens. But yes, plenty of action, plenty of excitement, lots of thoughts, lots of questions, having fun taking a stab at potential answers. But with that, I'm just going to say I'm proud of you for watching anime, and I'll talk to you again soon.
I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who supports the channel on Patreon. It really means a lot to me. If you think you might be in a position to support the channel on Patreon, there is a link in the video description. Please go check it out. Join the Patreon in order to receive early access to reactions and reviews, as well as extended cuts of the reactions and occasional bonus videos taking a look behind the scenes, as well as chat and polls to help me plan things to cover for the future of the channel. Thank you.